Joining me now for more on this is Kirvan Okun. He is a former lead intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coordinator for the U.S. Army and is now the host of the This Week Explained podcast. Good morning, Kirvan. Good to see you. How do you think Russia will use the North Korean troops? I know the White House advisor, John Kirby, said a lot is still unknown, but are there indications or weak spots you see that could indicate where Russia would put those troops?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on this morning. So what it looks like now with the 3,000 troops that seem to be in Russia at this point from North Korea, this looks like sort of an advise and assist role amongst North Korean special forces, where they're going to start training with the Russian military. And there is this theory that those troops, once they've beefed it up to about 10,000 to 12,000 North Korean troops within Russia, they will start to take the eastern flank and begin to be more heavily involved in this conflict.
So how worrying is the possibility of a third country in general putting boots on the ground in this war?
It's very concerning. It escalates it. This is something Putin has said that the West has been trying to do, is escalate this war. This shows that Russia, in fact, is escalating things, and that shows by South Korea's reaction to it. South Korea wants to send their own advise and assist military personnel, especially from an intelligence capability, into Ukraine to help the Ukrainians defeat the North Koreans once those troops do get to the front lines.
Why do you think North Korea is willing to do, well, as Kirby said, put their skin in the game like that? What could they be getting out of it or in return?
Yeah, it's mutually beneficial for Russia and North Korea. So while Russia is going to get more troops added to this war as it continues to become a war of attrition, the North Koreans and Kim Jong Un, they're going to get advanced satellite technology. They're going to get advanced nuclear technology, and they're also going to have an economic impact by this. So, they've been isolated for years. The Kim Jong-un regime, the West has sanctioned everything within North Korea, and now they're really no longer that as isolated as they were because here comes Russia to help, to assist them. South Korea is very worried about North Korea getting, especially the advanced nuclear development. It's going to change the game, just as Kirby said, in the Indo-Pacific. We know there's a possible coming conflict with China, a more emboldened North Korea, and a more technologically advanced North Korea is bad news for the Indo-Pacific.
Absolutely, and I would like to ask if you could go into more depth of, if you talk about technology, what are we talking about here? Because my next question would also be what the threat is to the West or the free world in more detail.
Well, as we've seen over the past few years, North Korea is advancing their spy satellite technology, but it really hasn't gotten off the ground as much as they wanted it to. They've had quite a few spy satellites that have failed to reach above the atmosphere. So Russia has been doing satellite technology for as long as any country. And so they have a lot of even highly classified information that they can provide to North Korea to get that sort of these intelligence satellites off the ground and into the atmosphere. Also, the nuclear technology. We all know Russia's one of the main nuclear powers. They've advanced as much as the United States has, and North Korea has not. And they need more information on how to do that. Now they're going to say that this is to power their country or to provide economic stability for their country, but really it is to advance their weapons, and those weapons are pointed directly at places like South Korea and Japan.
So if you translate that, what kind of damage would, well, nuclear weapons, that would be, of course, that answers the question, but what kind of, like spy satellites, for instance, what kind of damage could that do also in the Indo-Pacific?
So first of all, it's because North Korea is so isolated. Their intelligence program is not really that great. They're not getting enough information about South Korea and Japan and other countries. So this would then broaden that ability. They would be able to, in theory, Russia would allow them to get those satellites up, continue to or to start collecting intelligence on countries like South Korea, Japan, even the United States, and then that could lead to further on attacks when North Korea decides that they are at a technological advantage to South Korea.
Mm. So, in terms of the war, how do you think the West, or especially the US, would react if North Korean troops actually end up to go to the front lines to fight alongside the Russians?
Well, first they have to allow Ukraine to use U.S. provided weapons into Russian territory. So if Russia's going to allow North Korean troops into Ukraine to fight, the United States then has to give the gloves have to come off, handcuffs on Ukraine have to come off, and they have to allow them to do that. And if that happens, then we have an escalation, and it's not a good news story, but that's just the facts on the ground. These will have to happen in order to keep Ukraine in the fight, because if the U.S. continues to handcuff Ukraine on this, they are going to lose this war. Russia's going to become more emboldened, and now they have North Korea at their side, Iran, China. We've seen the BRICS summit. There's a lot of backing from the global South on the side of Russia.
Kirvan Okun, I think those were some really good insights. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.